All right.
Love this little salmon chair.
And we are live. So let me do this. All right. Okay. Welcome everyone to the launch of Sink or Burn by Cristy Carrera. Give it up. And just to reiterate what Cristy said, thank you for coming out on this freezing cold day. Hopefully it's a little warmer in here. My name is Greg Newton. I am the co-founder, along with my partner, Donnie Jokum, of the Bureau of General Services Queer Division. And the Bureau is an independent, all-volunteer queer bookstore that Donnie and I founded in 2012, and that has been here at the LGBT Center since 2014. In fact, the last time we hosted Cristy was when we had our grand opening here back in October 2014. It's kind of hard to believe. And here we are. We're still alive. And we're being helped by our volunteer, Jeffrey Archer, today. Thank you, Jeffrey, for your service to the community.
Thank you.
So as an all-volunteer queer bookstore, we rely on both sales and donations to keep this machinery going. So I'm gonna pass a bag around for donations. If you're able to give something great, we especially encourage you to make a donation if you know you won't be buying any books. But of course, we'd rather you buy some books. So if you have to make the choice, go for the book. There's also a Venmo QR code if you want to use that. And anyone watching online, if you'd like to make a donation, you can do so on Venmo at BGSQD. Before I introduce Cristy, I also wanted to say, we have regular bookstore hours, Wednesdays through Sundays from 1 to 7 p.m. We often stay open later when we have events. Our weekend events, though, are usually around 3 o'clock, like this one. And if you're not already on our email list, you can sign up for that by the register at the back of the room, or for those of you watching online, on our website, which is bgsqd.com. And you'll get an email every other Monday about our upcoming events. I also wanted to acknowledge that our organization operates on the unceded land of the Munsee Lenape. And we strongly encourage you to join the Bureau in signing up to make a monthly donation to the American Indian Community House, which was founded in 1969 and is located here in Manhattan. And signing up to make a donation to AICH is one way for settlers and non-native people to acknowledge the legacy of theft and genocide that comprise the history of New York City and the United States. And you can find out more at aich.org. The Bureau also recognizes Palestinian liberation as a fundamental part of our collective queer liberation. And we strongly encourage you, I'm always strongly encouraging people, to donate, to support. We strongly encourage you to take one of our free zines about why we feel it is important for queer people especially to stand in solidarity with Palestinians. So those are up by the register as well. And I forgot to mention, we also have Cristy's Next World Tarot cards, pocket-size edition. So those are available along with Sink or Burn by the register there. All right, let's jump into it. Cristy Carrera is a first-generation Cuban-American artist, writer, and musician. She is the creator of 3 illustrated novels and the revolutionary Next World Tarot, just mentioned, and has been illustrating for cultural and social movements for over 25 years. While exploring race, gender, sexuality, punk rock, and survival, Road creates a visual and audible soundtrack for a broken world. Please welcome Cristy Carrera.
Thank you so much. And thank you again for coming out on the Below Zero Day. I'm very grateful this space still exists, like you mentioned, Greg. And there's this rotating art show that always happens. And I'm so grateful to be here in the one time that the walls are all salmon-ish, my favorite color. I'm from Miami. But yeah, I'm just gonna start reading. Thank you so much for opening the space for a bisexual romance about trauma and fascism. I was in the bathroom looking at the giant poster of the rally and the marching and just thinking queer liberation through the times. It's so beautiful to look back on it. But then when you're in it, it's like all the trauma, and then on top of it, this survival, and then love, and finding love, and accepting love, and allowing yourself to experience love, which is very hard when you have not just trauma from your shitty ex, but the state and the church. So moving forward from that trauma and finding love and engaging in joy and art and revolutionary practices comes at a cost sometimes. Sink or Burn is based off of my many years of playing in punk rock bands and traveling and not having many resources, but creating these other worlds, and how when that feels like you are surviving and that will take you to the next place in your life, it was so important and so much. And I feel very privileged and honored to have had that whole like anarchist punk framework where we were in that. It's like, you know, we're all now, we're like, another world is possible. But I feel like I was in this world of like, we have built the other world and we are here and we're not getting out. But then we all like turn into like, you know, we enter our 30s and we like get pregnant and all that stuff. And we like get depressed or realize, oh my God, this world is all very limiting or it's very heterosexual. And we got to move to New York City and find ourselves. So this book is, a culmination of all those many moments of art and creating and healing. And so this is Cheap Glitter, the most famous band in the world. And there's no resources for music, for holding concerts and kind of like the kind of lavish representation of famous bands that we experience today, because the fascists have taken over. And can you tell me where the live stream, where like the camera is, just so I can make eye contact with it sometimes?
Yeah, it's just zooming from my laptop.
It's a little green thing?
It's that.
Oh, hi. Love a little thing.
They see you.
Unreal. We applied our applique, our eyelashes, and our armor. Spiked studs, coiffed bangs, fluorescent chiffons, and bold striped Balenciaga blouses, all of which had been liberated from a shattered Park Avenue. We were cheap glitter, and we looted prime accessoires. Back home in East Dystopia, otherwise known as Old New York, there were no wildfires. There were no musky embrace of gardenias and shrapnel. The East was dull, like smokestacks and concrete. What once had been resorts and faulty empires had now turned into debris. West Dystopia, the place once called California, was now Californo to us, was settling into its own detrimental state of post-war fumes. In the inland of Cali, we needed gas masks to breathe and titanium shields for ash season. To arrive safely as tonight's show, we needed spikes and hydraulics on our Astra 3 so we could drive across the Cali Range to the Olone coast where breathing was free. I don't know who I want to be today. I guess I just want to be hot. Yeah, let's be hot. Okay, I'm just gonna be hot. I stood up, stooping beneath the 12V TV that hung from the ceiling, and assembled a green shimmering chiffon skirt around my waist. And tired, fuck yeah. The van shook on the wide right turn, and Fulanito faced his compact, applying his eyeliner in a delicate brokenness that forced me to make great art, hot and tired. Fulanito was hot and tired and obscured behind all of his grieving. Can I reach the...
Yeah.
If you wanna,
I can do it.
okay. Oops. Fulanito was hot and tired and obscured behind all of his grieving, but beneath the sheer tulle swath of standoffishness, he was divine and pained. Fulanito wallowed in his dignity and paid no mind to the red tape that stood between his legacy and this moment. Traversing West Dystopia in our green and gold Astra 3, we glimmered with purpose. On the waterfronts of Olón, Cali, life had resumed. Reconstructed urban landscapes, wild farms, large installations of protest art, and decriminalized red light districts all sat on the peaks of the surviving inland's seaside cliffs. Exiting old AA 880, we were greeted by the pink and red fog that soiled our lungs but looked beautiful in retrospect. Through glimmering embers and disintegrated fog, we reached our destination. Most of the underground shows in the North Olón happened in the carcass of the Jack London Inn. The Jack was an abandoned 20th century hotel set and sat on the Oakland Bay facing the twinkling noise pollution of rusty, old, and lawless Alameda. We entered the scene with decadently painted wide eyes and naivete because just like yesterday, this was going to be the best night of our lives. In the basement, the backstage lounge was raging, so I cowered in a corner of the salty, empty hallway with Fulanito. Everyone looked gorgeous or angry or both, and I was proud to herald their filthy, prehistoric battle cry. However, I could feel the sneering, the discomfort of the onlookers, the media, and the admirers who had built an imaginary framework of who we, their faves, were in practice, not a couple, but available queer sluts. You know, like in our 2119 promo shot with the double-sided dicks. I, unfortunately, needed to start accepting the moments that felt divine. This heart, this tour, this fervor spiking the dawn of a squatter's revolution, unheard of in my mother's America. I needed to accept the moments that felt intimately cosmic, or rather moments that felt unreal, unclear, and unsafe. Because after all, we didn't have the luxury of time anymore. That night, I felt fake. I felt brash and bubbly. Oye, viva la revolución! I greeted old friends in a buzzing, rare confidence as they passed by. I turned back toward Fulanito to catch him staring at me. He stood against the wall in his mid-sized glory with his doe eyes, gloss lips, and heavy black liner, creating a serene middle ground between pain and fashion. Fulanito and I were polarizing and icy as front people. One day we were the life, the sex, and the show of the party. The next, we were stoic and mean and not popular, but infamous, like cold shoulders on warm nights. He pulled me towards his corner. You know, if it wasn't for you, I would have quit this a long time ago. Fulanito whispered the words into my ear, and on the ethereal plane, I fell flat. But here on earth, I smiled, maintaining a coy, elusive posture. Fulanito was born and raised in Cali. Ganache, our booking agent and roadie, and I had routed this tour with the intention of bringing Fulanito home for a night. Something that could have not happened otherwise, as cross-country travel and the flight industry had become gated by the gatekeepers. I grabbed his arm, feeling the stiff pinstripe fabric of some high-end blazer, probably vintage YSL or something. What do you mean? Fulanito smiled. His amusement was always paired with a bashful, uncomfortable smirk. I did not know if it was performative or if he was carrying the last bit of innocence left in dystopia. Hey, come out to the balcony with me. Fulanito commanded and I followed in tow. We exited the basement, leaving behind the sneering, the staring, and the swell of dried cumin and chlorine that had wafted in from a distressed boutique resort sitting on the Olón waterfront, like a monolith. This balcony overlooking the fires of his home, his legacy, and my escape was now the first place we'd ever snuck away to. So what do you want to tell me? He looked into my eyes for a half second as we were removed from the common plane of existence. Now we were in what felt like heaven. There's so much I want to tell you. Or was it purgatory? Fulanito was unavailable, newly single and somewhere between grieving and healing. Tonight, we would not kiss. Come here. Fulanito whispered, and I wrapped my arms around his shoulders, clutching his neck with my left hand and knowing I had been here before, through lifetimes, continents, and homes. Breathe with me. Synchronized into the uncanny rhythm of our hearts and our lungs, we transformed our ruins into paradise, into time-controlled chaos, into chaotic bliss. My heart did not palpitate. I was home. Our despair waned in tandem with every other breath, and our souls combined into an unflinching cadence of naive hope. We were finally fixed in time, in space, in unnerving vulnerability. Fulanito's breath was soft and dangerous at the same time, like love and femininity. My breath was shy and thunderstruck, like an orgasm. Fulanito let go and mumbled beneath his collar, "I don't want to stop." He turned away toward the bay. "What did you say?" I grabbed his arm, he grabbed my body, and we settled back into our breath, our warm embrace, a palpable remedy against self-loathing in times of apocalypse. I wasn't used to equilibrium. It was an awkward four-letter word that waged a war against the flux we called normalcy. Dystopia was not balanced nor sound. I had never really known the peace of the 2050 post-American bloom when blue whales sang and purple mountains sprang from the sparkling Atlantic to the sprawling Pacific. North America was then protected by the collective's billion-dollar contracts against fracking, dredging, displacement, and genocide when colonizers hit on the moon and humanity was forsaken. I was born 40 years too late and had to grow up during the early desperation period when you could choose to be free only by living in metropolitan coastal regions and college towns, knowing that the Great Divide had already begun to cast shadows over demographics and diasporas who had only recently reclaimed their land and cultures from 700 years of systemic erasure. In that moment with Fulanito, I was free. Free from cultural genocide, from AI terrorism, from the shitty payout in Seattle, and from wanting to be worshipped by whoever was working that shift, the one after every show in every town where everybody on it knew my name, yet none of them could understand how I could be so sad because gosh darn it, I was so cool. This stellar plane of suspended bliss smelled less like lonely nights of warfare and more like the sweat on Fulanito's jawline. Dense like live oak with subtle notes of gin and rare earth. For once, I was anchored. My mortal bones froze while my breath vacillated in the iridescent threshold between all the places I've called home and every galaxy I will never know. This moment was the cataclysm I longed for, the end, the beginning, the abyss, the dismal shuffle, hell, high water, and the aromatic florals in between. Here on this balcony began the unending tension that would send Fulanito and I to the glorious pits of a burning inferno where our naked flesh could finally meet, or to some other kind of hell, some kind of heaven, or some kind of interrogation with the spirits of my ancestors. Was this even allowed? Up here in suspension, in this rarely achievable state of being, our hearts and our teeth were in flight. And the ifs, buts, and wheres of who brought us here and what happens tomorrow did not matter. Unaffected by the wildfires, the awkward conversations, and the hollow goodbyes, we swung back and forth on some kind of thrill ride. Up here in suspension, we took a break from everything for what seemed like the first time. Back in 2050, when democratic socialism was introduced to the post-American bloom's infrastructure, the fascists either disintegrated into their private lives or colonized the moon. By 2073, the moon retaliated, as the Earth has, albeit through harsh climates and psychic attacks to their otherwise secure dispositions. Some made it back to Earth, and thus initiated years of violent upheaval in attempts to overthrow the post-American bloom. When the Great American Party was founded in 2079, my mother's generation assumed it was a government prank. Like, how the fuck could these clowns in vintage Brioni suits and bumblebee-colored vicuña trouser socks overthrow the mass decolonization movement of North America? By 2085, my parents had already given birth to me, signaling a sense of hope. Our world was intact then, our universal health care, our free education, and our sustainable housing, allowing me to come of age with a foolish flair for believing in revolution. By 2101, the Great American Party took control of most of North America, and as it now continued to win in favor of environmental destruction and mass displacement, Fulanito and I stood still. Avoiding the ruckus of our wildest night of tour and our well-concealed overlook, we held each other for the first time. Lost in an indefinite clasp, we tied generations of loose ends. Up here in suspension, this air was no longer chlorine bleach. It was his lion's breath and my whiskey teeth. Burning Monterey pine, live oak ash, fresh cut grass, and sulfur dancing beneath the far reaches of West Dystopia and this dilapidated room that once housed tourists, but now housed unrest. With every exhale, I released my fear of loving someone so deeply that it would become yet another fragile liability in the grand scheme of a looming apocalypse. Who even was I but a lowly soft butch disguised as a femme in a lime-colored chiffon with a full face, who was escaping her grieving process through drugs and alcohol? Did I even deserve this moment of self-serving embodiment? I looked at Fulanito's eyes and accepted the unnerving truth that this curse may be reciprocated in some lifetime, if not this one. Well, fuck. There's no turning back now. Hey, fuckers, Ganache interjected. 5 minutes till showtime. Oh, hey, man. Yeah, totally. Fulanito, doe-eyed and deadpan, scratched his head, trying so hard to care. Oh, shit, yeah, the show, I said, stumbling over my words. Fuckers. Ganache mumbled. I attempted to shake off the 5 minutes in heaven that had caressed a lifetime of longing. I faced Fulanito, but he faced forward in a blank, dedicated stare, eyebrows arched towards the sky and eyes wide with determination. We followed Ganache towards the curtains. All right, I'm gonna, read a little more. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna read about a punk rock show over in formerly the Virginias. I keep wanting to be like, are you all okay? Is everything fine? Do you need any water? Or
There is
do you
one.
need water? Sure. Cool. Yeah, and we'll do a Q&A later, and we should maybe pull some tarot cards for each other. It's so cold out. All right, so I'm gonna, we're into tour now. A lot happens. I'll read more about the government and about jail if y'all want to hear that, but I want to focus on some happy times about bisexual drama. Woo! We'll heal. We entered the James X and felt at peace once again. So does your hair just stay like that in this dryness? I asked Fulanito as we stood at the far end of the courtyard while everyone passed around chips and blunts. Do you do a wet set? No, touch it, Fulanito said. I obliged, passing my fingers between his coarse magenta curls that shimmered against the cool blue fluorescence, creating a kaleidoscope of light. His hair was soft at the root and rough at the end, like seasons or fucking. Dystopia suddenly paused to reflect on the revolution of my heart. But the cascading bodies blurred into warmth and energy. I did not care who was staring or who assumed my misbehavior, my unhinged nature. I was a witch, and I knew better, for this would all come crashing down someday. But just for this moment, I wanted to shatter time. I touched Fulanito's hair and crossed the line. Exiting our echo chamber, we walked through the James wooden pillars veined in moss and the unaffected faces inside. Elated or disenchanted, we did not know, as a sudden surge of electric heat propelled us to the stage. Locked into song and dance, our show at the James was convalescent. Wild-haired weirdos and mystical painted bodies, reeking of sweat, beer, and mountain laurel, yelled and danced and seemed to reconnect to the kind of levity that had been dead and gone in New America. Punk rock, in its traditional unpopular sense, was present there in the broken speakers dangling by neon green ropes and wires hanging above us like beacons, like death wishes. It was present in the lack of boundaries in the crowd, where wild, unbathed humans brushed up against each other without inhibition or fear. Oracle bashed the drumheads like they were enemies, like they were the state. She violently thrashed her full body like she had been reborn at the altar of a devil we all knew and loved. Reggie forgot his turmoil, his aching bones, inconsistent dystopian healthcare, and intuitive rage. Reggie led an hour of yoga and a bellowing go! Ignite 7 tangled melodic walks on the neck of his bass guitar, each unheard of to cheap glitter until now. Fulanito got naked. It was the thick of his Saturn return. This may be the best night of my life, I forget. The light fixtures were opalescent but could have been skylights, mirroring our souls to destinies we did not choose but were finally rehashing and understanding. Appalachia was still a crystal mine but no longer touched by industry. The structures that remained in these jagged, unkempt lands had been reclaimed by the descent. These lands were only accessible through dirt roads and clawed tire appendages that needed to crack through the burl and poisoned foliage. Spaces like the James X held and maintained regional cultures and their artifacts from bluegrass to blacksmithing. The James was part museum, part commune. Tonight, however, was for creating a raging, awkward utopia. Fulanito stood naked and proud behind his saxophone, standing far too close to me while I pretended to be unfazed. Because nudity was doldrum queer anarchy, and tonight we were not going to make a fuss, although I wasn't able to speak to him. I could not understand the wave of trauma that crashed into me whenever I was too in love, too turned on, too distant from the love I imagined, yet so close to Fulanito's tangible humanity. I called it tangible humanity, but I meant his dick. I wanted us all to be free. So I ripped off my chiffon and we danced in camaraderie, in community. And because the community loved a good naked spectacle. Fulanito faced me and watched in fervor and in heat, in batted lashes and mutual tension. The community wanted power and reconnection to the body autonomy that toxic wellness had destroyed. So we heralded a sensational blast of soul reconnection, of tits and ass and dicks and sass and unadulterated resilience. Punk rock. So punk. Thank you.
Cheers.
It's such a nice water. Was I supposed to drink? Is that
It's
okay? I drank
totally
out of the
fine.
bottle.
It's yours.
I saw a little complimentary cup.
It's all
Thank you.
yours.
Punk rock was a cultural phenomenon that had become quite distant from its initial groundwork, except in its commitment of truly loving and elevating and listening to thy neighbor. Punk rock was about picking one another up when we fell, whether it took seconds or years. It was the anti-gravity net that protected us when we were young and searching for community with history. On that night, it had been over 175 years since musicians had considered writing battle cries in the spirit of rage for communicating pain without a means to an end or for creating movements or communities. However, through 3 chords and very unkempt fury, punk rock was still the same old punk rock, an ancient portal into the underworld where the vague intersection between justice and freedom created sound. But punk rock in today's revolution, in the slow-paced destruction of our homes and our definitions of security, now it was just the universal token of Saturday night culture. Not the underworld special it had once been. It was the floodgate of a subtle evolution toward a kinder world. The curtains closed and the crowd cheered. We'd done good, commodified or not, still, my innards sunk. Hey, come outside with me. Naked Fulanito grabbed my hand and I did not hesitate. It was raining. We danced and I laughed, forgiving our sexual arousal and forgetting the daily strain and the emotional grind. Fulanito danced with his eyes closed, arms stretched across the ether he was spinning, so I followed suit. He grabbed me from behind and spun me towards the sky against electric fireflies and gently toxic rain. It was safe enough to dance and dangerous enough to fall in love. Fulanito faced me, our eyes fixed, and we spun in unison. I held on harder while the world disintegrated into a cyclical blur. Fulanito looked confused. His brow shifted from furrowed to asymmetrical to balanced and well-rested from traveling 20,000 miles, seeing his hometown in ashes and watching me get arrested. In the dizzying spectacle, he smiled and laughed, and I did too. I always wanted to learn how to meditate. I always wanted to quit the arts and focus on my community and my skills and create something beyond myself in the comfort of my own private citrus and patchouli-scented revolution adorned with pre-war ceilings and families of stray cats. Every now and then I wondered who I was fighting for, the revolution and the magic we made by answering a calling, or Fulanito. I never daydreamed of my success outside of knowing Fulanito. I mostly dreamt of my art and its purpose, what we would do next, outcomes aside. Fulanito wanted to be a fixture, and I wanted to place him there and keep him there so I could watch him smile from the sidelines or stand beside him on a faulty pedestal as long as it could hold his genius before it groveled at an elite class. Fulanito was not yet my North Star, at least I didn't think so. He was Saturn and Mars at their brightest because they required me to stay grounded, in tune, aiming for divinity and out of my trauma. We spun and fell to the ground in hysteria. I looked at his face as the unfamiliar feeling of peace swelled. I don't want to stop. Fulanito whispered and possessed me. I grabbed his hands and we were standing again, spinning, unaffected. The crowds joined and our hands clasped tighter. We ran back in, looking for our pants, our gowns, and our wits as onlookers giggled into one another's embrace. Fully dressed, Fulanito seemed spent, with feelings, and so he walked towards another crowd, which was funneling down from the show upstairs, away from me. Maneuvering his way into the distant living room mosh pit at the lobby of the James, where punks caressed among the fog machines and the tables of free fruits and anti-fascist classics, Fulanito found Silky, the forlorn genius who was supposed to have been my co-conspirator, but who instead became the one that never was. Silky was not entirely guilty of her heterosexuality, but you can't hold a dyke's hand without expecting her to fall in love with you. I'd done just that when she drunkenly held my hand at dusk in West Dystopia on the hottest July in 100 years. The year was maybe 2118, I choose to forget. And I'd been reeling for Fulanito while respecting the existence of Narnia, his partner, and pounding my exhausted skull against the concrete until I found a love that would give me attention and inspire me with great art. Those were the days of filling voids and forging love in an attempt to accelerate a healing process that had made absolutely no sense to me. Right girl, wrong time, I told myself, when I decided that Silky was not the one. Wrong. Silky was a heterosexual, oh, sorry, I read that wrong. I would like to read it again. Right girl, wrong time, I told myself when I decided that Silky could be the one. Wrong. Silky was a heterosexual, or I, at least, was not butch enough. I had worn a crew neck t-shirt the time at dusk when I should have been pursuing great nature or secret spots, but instead was searching for a girlfriend. Flabbergasted for reasons beyond my control, I watched Fulanito flirt with Silky through the best times and the worst of times, peculiarly creating a mirror to my fawning. To this day, I may never know whether his advances towards Silky were genuine or a mind game, as mystery is a beloved trope in the minefields of human affection. After all, Silky was not interested in me beyond casual girl love and securing empty promises, so embracing Fulanito's affection was the undoubtable choice. The heterosexual one as well. In the lobby, they danced and laughed and caught up in a way that should not have mattered. Friends gathered, the room was winding down, and Reggie trailed around, dreadfully cognizant of the nebulous space between now and later. I ignored the scene. I wanted Fulanito to be free. After a while of empty small talk with the strangers in the other room, I followed Silky into the bathroom. We laughed together for the first time in years, and I wish we could have been the young queer sluts who seldom batted a lash at chaos, youthful and free without the inhibitions of articulate wisdom, not because I was horny or missed her, but because I missed the mask of resilience burgeoning queer sluts carried as a badge of honor. She smiled and sang my praises with submissive adoration, but I could not help but think that she may have also felt sorry for me in this solemn, polyamorous New York minute, where she'd rejected me to be Fulanito's dance floor heroine. Tonight, I was only worthy of affection in theory. Blah. Bodies and insecurities circled the density of the room, but did not play a role in reality as the music raged on. Nobody was here to fuck or run off or make plans. They were only there to sing along, hang out, and go home. I left the crowd, sat on the hood of the Astra, and sulked in the slim intersection between loser and important, getting gaslit by my own intuition. Over the James, the smog was clear and stars were visiting, but I could not find my sense of wonder. I smoked and sighed and raised questionable doubts based on fleeting moments and lies. Had he chosen to deny the moments of despairing affection that had felt like anchors, or was it just his natural inclination to forget? The thing with 20th century wellness was that the ether was normalized. In dystopia, we'd maintained the energetic practices that we'd gathered during the American bloom. We were telepathic. We were psychic. We felt soulmates, like we felt textures, like we felt breath. We were not superhuman, but we were products of a revolution that had turned worn, traumatized artists into fire-breathing prophets. So there was very little I could do about this lover's conundrum aside from choosing another path such as lesbian separatism or a new religion. Okay, I'll try. Sorry. But between our heartstrings and the doomed prophecies of home, the appeal of independence was bleak. Fulanito and I were soulmates, I often believed. We were also retired sluts without a net, horny, disorderly, and absolutely terrified of love. The gang exited the James. We piled into the Astra. Thank you. Let's just keep going. A little time check.
Yeah. It's about 10 till 4.
All right, cool. So I will. I'm just gonna keep going on this part really quick. Re-entering East Dystopia and traversing Appalachia, the fresh smells of old trees and living soil held us. We were headed toward Dystopia's breadbasket, its farmlands, smokestacks, food production, and fields of corn. This is what we had, and the unexpected patches of green were enough for now. New America was not a religious rite, but a harsh middle ground between forced wellness and autocratic fascism. Like Whole Foods and Amazon, I based the regime off of Whole Foods. By 2117, they'd gotten rid of trees and public art. They'd eliminated free healthcare, public parks, and basic rights. They ushered the biozones into environmental warfare and had given us two options, sink or burn. However, they couldn't get rid of that one thing that nagged at my arteries when I was learning to breathe, that gnawed on my eyes when I was trying to sleep, that thing that was smarter than me, that ate me alive and compromised my will to work or live, that thing that was so precious we desired it despite a looming apocalypse, the everlasting syndrome that sits in my lower intestine like a bad meal or a regret. They could never abolish the unbearable signal from both the universe and our greatest self. They could not kill love, because love kept us believing and breathing and jerking off and hoping for something amid the awkward, polarizing, daunting pile of shit that was 2121. Still, I like to believe the greatest love story ever told was the one about sleeping alone in a van, a squatter's luxury hotel in old New York. New York, with its half-destroyed skyscrapers, ancient bridges, mystifying limestone fossils, and cultural chaos seeping through the cracks of a devastated metropolis, the home I feverishly missed on the wings of tour. Heading back east in a sleet-covered van and armed with chaos appendages, a sigh of relief took hold of the atmosphere while ganache swayed to vintage cumbia on the car stereo. Everything was back to normal. And sexual tension was once again potent and distracting. The sun was setting and the beauty of insurrection blurred into the past and the noise. It was like a purge, yet unintentional. Exiting one town and entering into the next, we'd leave behind the songs, the memories, the regrets, and the haphazard moments of staying human. In time, we'd forgive ourselves, one another, and the catastrophic potential in between. Fulanito put on headphones, and he handed me the latter half of his Galletas Margarita 2-pack. I opened my eyes, gasped, and smiled, doe-eyed and discreet, and he smiled in return in that 5 to 10 second tango that would live forever in my mind. That night, we would play in Quakertown, a region that had once been known for conservative values and a subtle pace of living. Quakertown was now a reclamation of autonomous debauchery. In Quakertown, everybody was hot and queer and covered in stick and poke tattoos about their dog or their pain or their meds or something homoerotic. Quakertown was simultaneously a wild orgy, a family dinner, and a silent meditation through sacred fields of corn. Once we arrived, I sat in the van for what felt like 17 days, though it was just an hour. I was having one of those post-traumatic flare-ups that race between my junk and my heart until it released through my throat. So I sat back and I waited, catching a glimpse of Fulanito walking toward the venue. He caught my eye and smiled. I couldn't grasp these sublime flirtatious nods as reality, so instead I mourned my sanity. And Florida, and girls with long hair and glasses, and queer brunch because I'll never be butch enough or polyamorous enough, and I smiled back. Bisexuality felt like an ancient curse, but I refused to rest or forget or deny my untethered truth. I did not care who the fuck you were or how long your hair or your dick was, as long as you were there, staring or singing back. There was something about watching someone simply exist that could be deeply harrowing or deeply inspiring. I could see myself equally integrated or X'd out, and I hated my ability to stay sound in whatever story my anxiety told me. It's just that everyone in Quakertown was so fucking hot. I exited the van and walked toward an alley by the side entrance where our gear was being towed and on a shoddy ramp. I found a soft ledge with sprouting peonies and sat down, nauseated. Watching Fulanito exist exhausted me if I let it. He looked so free, so self-aware, so sweaty and proud. Maybe he was reeling from our performance at the James, or from holding me, or from something that should not matter if I ever hoped to find my own closure or peace. I was used to losing my spine, and this time was no different. My spine became exhausted around hot people. She wanted to fit in. She wanted to feel hot too, in her chiffon, without being informed by ancient wounds. But there was always that sting of PTSD that for some reason would not leave me the hell alone. If I could count the manipulative shots at my skull that I'd known too well, I would sleep better and be much better at counting. I'd had this one ex. I was about 20. And he'd messed with my autonomy and my organs in a way that burned so deep, I'd committed myself to not overprocessing that one era when I'd felt worthless, suicidal, inconvenient. Because boy, oh boy, had I processed. I processed in therapy, in hot springs, in relationships, in funerals, in the middle of wars, carnivals, and orgasms. That night in Quakertown, my loose ends revisited. Whenever the trauma threatened to rise to the top of my brain, I'd drink more than my bandmates than I would on bad days. I often chose destruction when faced with any residue of those memories. The ones that made me feel wrong and undeserving of sensuality. The ones that sought clarity when the walls between Fulanito and I swelled. The ones that made me feel like a creature in the worst way. Not the strong way, like when I shit on the gender binary. The self-deprecating way, like when I've lost all connection between my body when I touch it and my body in the mirror. All right, I'm done with that part. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna keep going?
Sure, yeah.
All right, if anyone has any questions before I keep going, feel free to interrupt me. I'm a Gemini and a Cuban. I need to be interrupted to feel at peace. All right, I'll read a little bit about this show, and then I'm gonna read the last thing, and we'll talk about our feelings together. The Quakertown show. I sat with Oracle and Fulanito on a displaced back seat of a Chevy Suburban that sat on the corner of the basement venue. Everyone gathered near, bringing us weed from their garden and bagels from the trash, accented with an array of vegan cream cheese flavors and assorted seashells and petri dishes. The Quaker punks were caretakers and confident matrons. Ugh, I love the lumbar support on these seats. Quaker punks were also my trigger. I think I'm just gonna sit here until we play. What the fuck is up, Queens? Welcome to the shipwreck. Pants Crusher entered the scene and we squealed like lost kids. Pants was the king of mid-Atlantic DIY, but as an anarchist felt very uncomfortable when faced with the reality of his power and investment in maintaining a music community. Pants was just shy of 21, but had already built a movement from the basement of the shipwreck. How's tour? Pants asked winningly and enthused. Oh God, I was not my best self. Let's just say that we're happy to be here. Oracle raised a glass and we toasted against every recollection that made the system feel larger than the galaxy. To hear! The James show was sick though, I mumbled. Yeah, that was fierce. Oracle smiled. Yeah, Fulanito got Nate. Hell yeah, thanks for making it out here. Pants saw something in the distance. Oh crap, y'all have to meet Sandy. She's over there. She had a dream with sleep paralysis about the show. You know how she is. Oh great, I thought to myself in a self-deprecating tone fabricated by my worst abusers who did not want me to feel powerful, a tone set by the ghosts of my ancestors who never wanted their wives and daughters to thrive, a tone that suggested competition as a self-fulfilling prophecy in order to prove that I'm pretty fucking cool or that I'm at least worthy of existing. Sandy was a legend and I was kind of jealous. We all knew she existed and that she cast spells and made deals with all kinds of devils while holding space for all kinds of angels. We knew she was part of Demonicha, a punk rock coven made up of Brazilian, Sicilian, and Caribbean healers. They did not share secrets or potions unless the universe demonstrated and begged for the work that only they were capable of crafting. Before New America, Demonicha had all been baristas, clowns, sex workers, and scientists because they could not sell magic due to a karmic agreement with their past lives as Sam Haines and Encanto. Encanto had been a turn-of-the-century coven who had not honored their pagan guides and who had appropriated and sold their indigenous constituents' secrets. Thus, these secrets had been passed down to Demonicha through the ether, through their strongest ancestors, but with a toolkit and a surcharge for karmic justice. Sandy was born exhausted and jaded and had spent her life gathering taboo skills that were a test against Encanto's fallacy. Sandy was also saccharinely joyful to the detriment of every morose white boy punk rocker. She was Demonicha's Sicilian contingent, the past life descendant of Catherine Marie Claire, who'd been the leader of Sam Haines' Encanto and the culprit of the curse that had founded Demonicha's purpose. Demonicha had allowed themselves this lifetime to herald a path of compassion and to heal and transform the earth through their supernatural abilities. Telepathy, precognition, clairvoyance, telekinesis, astral projection, and allegedly teleportation. Demonicha's role in New American descent was to do better. They were the essence of everyone and everything I wanted to be. Calm, in tune, fun, aware of ancestral purpose, magical, gorgeous to the naked eye, but a kaleidoscope of history and wisdom to the intimate partner, very inspirational, typically in a flowing gown, often found by the sea, talking to dead people and writing songs, horny, very horny, also jaded and therefore very in love, not to a detriment, but at the pinnacle of an enlivened heart space. Yes, that was me in my fantasies. In my vision of a post-traumatic resilience. On good days in West Dystopia, on a balcony overlooking the glow of toxic phosphorescence. That was me before they'd starved us. before I'd witnessed the death of Appalachia and gotten too close to New America, before they'd fried me from within, the me before the unpleasant withdrawal that came with the initial descent of a national tour. This perception of self-care, this perception of self was rare, and I saw it in Demonicha, in most of the Quaker punks as well. Their powerful and wise eyes and their uncanny ability to hold onto peace during collapse was evident. I wanted to be that, to offer that. Hey, I'm Sandy! She walked towards me as if we had always known one another, and I stood up to greet her. Wow, hey, I'm Carolina, or CT if you're tired. It's so cool to finally meet you. Sandy had been following and supporting Cheap Glitter for over a decade. Can I show you something crazy? What's that? I can tie my labia in a knot. Wanna see? Hell yeah, I exclaimed. This was just art. An onlooker surrounded me. Sandy lifted her pleated pink polka dot pleather skirt and pulled out her labia while laughing. Like an offering, she presented either lip in unison. See? This was not sexual. This was not awkward. This was Quakertown. Sandy resumed, stretching out her labia as far as possible, and then tied them in an overhand knot, as promised. Ta-da! Sandy presented her work with pride. Oracle and Fulanito watched from beside me, and locals whispered, "She's doing the thing for Cheap Glitter!" Wow, bravo! We cheered and clapped, and Sandy bowed for the momentous response, likely taking a second look to ensure our circumference was adults only. Thank you, thank you. Sandy was a rare Gemini stellium, a Gemini sun, a Gemini rising, and a Gemini moon. We did not know what to expect, sincere wisdom and practicality, or a very horny clown. Sandy helped me lose all my inhibitions. I reached a sobering pace as we walked, and we danced in the crowd to other bands. Fulanito side-eyed me and my independence for a minute that felt eternal. So I reminded myself of all the times he didn't have the time to talk, or go for a walk, or hash out the inconsistencies of the last 4 years, and move on or fall in love. I forgave whatever what was in him, and danced. For the night, the unsavory accents of my obsession with Fulanito waned. My trauma dissipated. I felt adult, healthy. Fulanito danced with those freaks over there. I danced with these freaks over here. And we both remained suspiciously confident, although not confident enough to take risks or make mistakes. Not enough for a breakthrough, but enough to dance in my bones and with some cool dykes and some rusty brick and mortar mid-Atlantic warehouse that smelled like yeast and lavender. I left the crowd carrying my satchel of gear to find myself. New York, eh? Sandy sat next to me outside the warehouse while I was tuning my guitar on the brown brick ledge that surrounded a bed of hemlock. Hell yeah! I looked down toward my guitar. New York! I was so fucking cool when I wasn't in love. When I wasn't weak and hyper-aware of the cosmic significance of a blank stare. This experience made me sensitive to witches and clairvoyance, and that made me bad at a discerning ego. I grew up in Atlantic City. I'm pretty much a mermaid, Sandy confessed. Is that right? I was reserved and terrified. Sandy had V-shaped fuchsia bangs and a buzz cut in the back. She was tall and beautiful and interested in talking to me. So when's the last time you went into the ocean? I asked with sparkling curiosity. Oh, fuck. Probably before the riots. Is it really green? Sandy remarked with suspected disappointment, but having been born and raised in the ocean, yes, it's kind of nice to look at when you forget what it feels like to swim. I mirrored her dissatisfaction. Sandy stared close and unfurled a sympathetic prophecy. Hey, you should come out to the Demonicha van after the show. I gasped and smiled and did not say a word. Don't tell anyone, but I think we have something that you need. I wasn't sure if this was going to be about drugs, sex, or rock and roll, but I obliged. Cheap Glitter took the shipwreck stage. In awe and stupors and bright tulle borrowed from the free boxes lining the corridor where our merch table sat. Local distributors of clothing, food, handmade essentials, and art joined the carnival because Quaker punks were geniuses at merging worlds. Raging in Quakertown was like downing glitter bombs and soda from the fountain of youth. It was wild hairdos, wild capes, adults dressed as clowns, punk rockers, and their children bursting with wildlife and bagels. There was something about the bagels and their abundance. Their simple production, their overcrowded factories. The Quaker punks loved tossing bagels around. Some would get eaten, some would get tossed out of reach to the dismay of performers. The children were usually kept at bay from the drunks and the labia art and the consensual garden of fucks of our horny, rabid descent. On stage, however, we put our vices, our stigmas, and our secrets aside so we can all dance together as a family, living since we had forgotten how to. Through the bodies and chants, a costume centaur bum rushed Reggie, knocking him over and spilling gin all over the neon pink, purple speaker cabs, only to reveal the one and only, the elusive Gem X. Gem X was an anomaly, a strange bookend to Reggie's saga, a luthier, a carpenter, and tonight, a centaur. The speaker cabinet feedback squealed into disparity. Noise and laughter chewed us up and swallowed us and took us into the threshold of our own doing, a sanctuary, as a basement in the middle of something electric. Can we move to the old image? Or the one, yes. It'd be nice to just have this show picture while I read this. All right, fucking Quaker queefs, shit! Fulanito led the Quaker punks into a cadence of sweat and squeals. Every song was a miracle and a riot. Circle pit! Fulanito commanded. Circle pits were ceremonial, an undying 20th century tradition. They happen in mosh pits when the song reaches a pinnacle or a breakdown, and tens of hundreds of people coalesce and make a giant, infamous empty circle. As the members of a circle pit wrangle profusely at lightning speed, the performer receives a bolt of inspiration. Sometimes people would fall down or break an ankle or get trampled by unaware battering rams of people. It didn't matter though, since there were always spectators maintaining the peace. We played our last song along the cylindrical engine of Circle Pit fed as the Circle Pit fed us. Cheap Glitter closed the set a little bit after midnight and we packed up our instruments and behind the sequin curtain to the left of the stage. Ganache and the shipwreck crew were on top of it, so I trailed behind. I followed Sandy Beerbrat to her van for secrets, drugs, or an exorcism. I was unsure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's so nice that that folks came out. We can talk about capitalism later, but I usually do art. That's what I usually do in life. And I play music, and I'll never forget when I published the Next World Tarot about, it was 10 years ago. I presented at the Lambda Literary, the Next World Tarot is my last project, the tarot deck. And I was presenting like an award at the Lambda Literary Award Show, and I was working on the deck, and like my queer community, like the weirdos and the angry people, were. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, and they weren't. It wasn't like, oh, a deck. That's weird. You know, it's just like, well, punk rock. You know, we just do all the things that you feel, and if one of them is marketable, great. If one of them is not, like, you have to continue feeding your soul. And so, there was a woman who was like, oh, Cristy wrote. I love, you know, the other two books, Spam Passion and Bad Habits, were the books that were circulating at the time. And she was like, what are you working on? And I was like, oh, I'm working on a tarot deck. It's like, I'm writing it and I'm illustrating. And she's like, that's not a book. And she just walked away. and I'm like, yes, girl, I love her. If you were watching this, I love you. Remember that you did that to me. But yeah, like it's like this. It's weird. It's like capitalism. That capitalist like kind of separating all the arts and making it hard to like coexist with all of your creations. It just gets really hard, and it gets really hard when it was a new project, and it's like time has to pass. And so thank you. I'm just very grateful you all came out in the Below Zero to a book that many of you probably haven't read. So most of you. So thank you. And Yeah. I've done 3 launch shows, all for the different, these different worlds. And I'm very grateful to have made this work on this week of Stinkor Burns' birth. So yeah, I'm gonna read something like romantic and happier and not about drama, but not romantic, just a little bit more self-empowerment. So you can fast forward to the one and after actually. Yes, thank you. This is Carolina Tatiana San Lázaro de la Quinta. And I chose that last name because on tour, La Quinta is like the cheapest, but also they have like hot tubs. Yeah. So if you want the really cheap hotel, but you also want the luxury, and then every bandmate wants their own room. That's where you're gonna, if you want the good budget. So I hope the people who experience that with me recognize their hotel choices. Hey, wanna go for a smoke? Fulanito grabbed my wrist with the tips of his fingers and his third eye. Always. I stepped off my spiral. I just don't want to be a weirdo. I obviously feel some kind of a way. We walked and I spit my truth with enough vagueness and wouldn't disrupt our prerogative. The other night when I said I probably wouldn't be playing music if it wasn't for you, Fulanito unraveled. I really meant it. Fulanito hid behind his collar as he did when his vulnerability spilled into view. We continued to walk without many words, and my despair waned to the dismay of modern therapy. I was now at peace. I had validation beyond psychics and long stares. Action spoke louder than words, and finding our own closure was successful feminism. Still, words can build expedited, everlasting foundations. We arrived at the venue, and I kept quiet, watching everyone talk and reconnect. For the first time in what felt like my entire life, I watched love purposefully. I wanted him to engage with life, bodies, and smiles, and it was infectious. I watched him in awe and dispersed into my own schmoozing, sinking into a hormonal balance that sang like hummingbirds and clicking glass. Fulanito and I gathered around the debris of our performance, coiling cables and packing instruments. We were worn, reeking of moss and sweat. He looked at me as if I were a sprawling sunset, a boundless landscape, a work of art. Oracle, Barnaby, Ganache, Reggie, and a stowaway Gem X surrounded us, evading their smirks and intoxicated with tense sensation. I tried to control my knowing smile. Gem X had evidently traveled to Toronto, hitching a ride on service transit like hover ships and electric freight trains. Reggie was like me, bewildered by affection yet anticipating extremes. Gem X was extremely interested. So did you guys have a cool walk? Reggie asked us if we were hot tea and a source of joy, not another minefield. It was fucking awesome, Fulanito exclaimed, and I unfurled my sexless misery. Yeah, it was. I self-actualized and returned to Earth. We found these really cool gluten-free ice cream cones in the trash, but no ice cream, thankfully, since it would have been gross. There weren't any wipes or anything, whatever. It was normal. I looked up and saw that Fulanito had paused and was, in rare form, staring at me in public. Or maybe time had stopped. I couldn't tell. My innards were warm, but my face was trained to stay poised at the first sight of love. After all, the space where we could lose ourselves in the stupid things that allowed us to laugh or smile was where we found home. The climactic embodiment from feeling so alive transformed my body into a sanctuary. As opposed to the exhaustion from a lifetime of learning experiences, I could tell these new moments apart from the way I settled into my clothes and my shoes and the way my nerves fluttered like electricity. We regained our wits and packed up. Everybody always asked why we packed our own gear and cleansed our own aftermath after both dream shows and shit shows. It was so difficult in this day and age to explain that being internationally renowned did not mean internationally well equipped. Regardless, this labor of love and solitude always led us home amid the semblance of punk and the warfare of notoriety. We returned to Barnaby's late at night. Barnaby is Oracle's lover who's just the lesbian who will take care of you. And so we're all kind of like, God, how can we be like Barnaby? And that's what inspired, a conversation. We returned to Barnaby's late at night. The sky was awash with the year's first nebula, and the galaxy was visible, as it often was in old Montreal when the city called for an international blackout. Hey, wanna go for a walk in the blackout? Fulanito took my hand before I could answer, and we ran toward the fog-ridden Montreal streets. Sneaking along fire pits and brick carcasses of empty rooms, we walked and spat into the scattered puddles of radioactive debris so we could listen to the electric cackle. We found an overlook to the side of an old refinery and gazed into the Milky Way. The night was clear, and Fulanito's smile looked crooked and tired beneath the glow of a blood moon that was half colonized, half livid, and curating retaliation. Every time I, breathless or aroused, walked next to him, I would forget the collapse, the resistance, the everlasting war between the regime and the earth, and I would only remember my will to live. And I'm not sure what my abuelas would say in their autonomous glory about this, but it was the kind of love that I was willing to suffer for. Hey, hold my arm. Fulanito's commanding softness wrapped me until I could no longer speak, only nuzzle my laughter into the damp upholstery of his stolen coat. We traversed the toxic hellscapes under twinkling with signs of life. Through the windows and beyond the architecture were candlelit families, laughing, kids playing, couples fighting, people crying, people fucking, and people thinking tirelessly while smoking a cigarette that had been lit by a tiny bonfire that might just last forever. Fulanito was not much taller than me, and so his eyes landed at the pick position when we talked and when I jumped, laughed, or flirted with my whole body. We were always so close to screaming or kissing. His hair was rough and tangled and day-glow magenta with the occasional disarray of city sludge. He liked to act as if everything was so simple. Fulanito was mostly raised by his father until he fled at the dawn of the regime. His father was a rawhide-clad forest guy who talked to trees, whistled with the wind, and carried on with his ancestral knowledge, part Inca, part Mediterranean. His father, Paulo, was still living and working as a land defender in an undisclosed tree sit, occasionally emailing Fulanito photos, anecdotes, and very few updates in compliance with the criminalization of dissent, the United States Post Office, and public transit. Thus, Fulanito had very little patience for despair. He was also a forest guy, a NorCal hippie to a lowly Caribeña with no background in stillness, but an eagerness to learn. We walked back to Barnaby's porch. Regrouping, my knees trembled and my sacral void shook, as if maybe I had just healed something. Thank you so much. Should I read a little more? I would like to close off with this piece about masturbation. If you're interested.
Yeah.
If anybody has questions, and then we can end with the masturbation, because I actually don't know where it is. If anyone has a question, so I can find this page.
I have a question. Are there any songs, like whether it's from like your own music or music that inspires you, that you would say would like kind of sort of take on as like the theme of this book or anything like that?
I'm in a band called Choked Up, and I write songs. It doesn't even matter. I've been writing songs since I was born, and so I always do music, and so we have a couple songs that are, I kind of wrote them for Carolina to sing, like as I was writing them. I don't know if any of y'all remember me with purple hair in 2021, and she's based off of that era and other eras of me where I was just trying so hard love my work and not be stuck in that trauma. So a lot of these songs that like romanticize loneliness and romanticize sexual tension, that sometimes I'm writing them and I'm like, God, this is such bad feminist rhetoric. I'll never be that famous. But I don't care. It's very important. Someday, you know, everybody will feel comfortable enough to celebrate their pain and suffering, or make art about their pain and suffering in a healing way, and as opposed to being embarrassed by it, or being, you know, like being like kind of like the way industries really punish us for being too real or being too sad or too like wounded. And I even feel that sometimes I'm like, God, I'm too wounded. I have to just smoke a ton of weed before I answer that email, or you know, like have that interaction, because these wounds can't show. And so, but yeah, all the songs that the wounds show were kind of written for this. There's a new song called Señorito that is on this, and there is a song I can't find the masturbation part, because I wasn't really planning to read it, so I didn't mark it. I'm gonna read this one little part here. That's kind of that's a song. That's a song that I wrote. That is not a song yet, but is on here. So, and I opened it while looking for this masturbatory moment, but I think the universe wanted me to read this instead. The rain came down and we piled into the Astra and told more stories. We sneered at and mocked our past selves, staring into one another and imagining revolutions and future generations thriving without empire, without insurgency, but with stars and eternity as we had once known. Fulanito drove us back onto the mainland. I don't want to see that. I don't want to spoiler. We turned on the radio to despairing podcasts riddled in anxiety and doomed prophecies. I changed the station to the 2099 Classics, the oldies radio. We drove into the city triumphant, grounded. Reaching my stop, I turned towards the door, unlock it. I stumbled toward the street with my eyes on Fulanito. See you later, I said to him as I smiled without restraint, walking through town, taking notes in journals and planning revolutions I was now living as I had never before. So this is a moment after she does some witchcraft and kind of connects to this healed person as herself. I could finally be a true warrior, I thought as I smiled at the stars and scoffed at the regime's imperial blimps that would often visit to spread propaganda. I planned a future that looked like the past, I thought to myself. This is how I feel like after I start a new like vitamins routine and I just like take it that morning and I'm just like, I'm finally a person. I'm normal. And that's how you manifest greatness. Except this time, I would not be drunk or broken or hinged on the prospect of love. I would be free because I was finally divine. I walked down an alleyway and I saw the dripping black writing on a dimly lit concrete wall. I think I hate myself tonight and I don't care because tomorrow I'll be over you, so righteous, self-aware. Tonight's for open wounds, tired lungs and a sense of doom. Tomorrow I'll be over you. Little hearts were scribbled below the text next to an assorted array of musings ranging from Giovanni forever. I love Giovanni. Giovanni is boo, to fuck the regime and die AI. This was new, to see my words so large and so inflated and more powerful than I had ever seen myself in this body full of haphazard history. My vision realigned with this new consciousness. This was no longer my story. It was somebody else's, and it was perfect. I had never seen myself through the lens of the kids whose power shined beyond my own when we screamed together at any given night. To have loved me then in my drunk shambles and all may have just been the divine love I'd sought for so long. I sat down and stared without shame or self-deprecation, but overdue admiration for the girl who had conquered her demons with glitter and grace. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you. Yeah, if anyone has any more questions or concerns.
Okay, so one, I'm a fan of your tarot. So
Thank you so much. Yeah, tarot questions about my personal life, all welcome here today.
I just wandered in here by chance, and I'm a diviner, so I use tarot, and I've been very interested in like the querying aspect of the Rider-Waite. How do you find that in your literature? Like, do you use the key, like, did you derive your concepts of the tarot from your literature, from your life, or?
Yeah, I wrote the definitions just from my knowledge and all the tarot I had studied. But I wrote it the way I wrote Sink or Burn, where it was just like, I wrote all the stuff in my journal. And after a couple of years, it's like, oh, this is that, this is gonna be that. Like, and my favorite example would be the death card, is like just something I wrote in my journal about accepting a breakup and an ending. And I wrote about all the stuff I wanted my ex to give me as conversations or healing or, closure. And I made the death card as if death's role is to offer those things that I wanted. But it came out as this more universal kind of like, death is here to like give you the closure that nobody else is gonna give you. And that's an example of that.
I picked up a lot, I hate that cue too. I picked up a lot on the environmental justice aspects of your work. Is that tied to kind of like indigenous sovereignty towards the future? Like what, as a diviner, what am I to like be able to clairvoyantly see through it or like empathetically feel while giving like divination?
Well, I'm gonna tie that into Sink or Burn a little bit, because Sink or Burn is about that destruction of the earth by powerful governments that elevate their wealth and like this very like nominal wealth through the destruction of the earth, fracking or war, bombs, all these things that destroy nature. And I wrote about it here as if, it's almost as if the vision of the Next World Tarot never happened and it was destroyed. And so these characters are born into a world that is as if the Next World Tarot visioning was, almost achieved. Because, the United States is big, so it's a little achieved. But yeah, that whole concept of land back initiatives where you're giving agricultural and kind of environmental power and leadership to indigenous nations, and so their ancient knowledge can heal this earth that is ancient. So it's like there's and in the tarot, I feel like a lot of that teaching is about, how can, what is the rawest, wisest version of you gonna do in this situation, and how will it honor these like long-term histories of destruction and of violence, and how can we resist, and how can we not like mimic those histories? And so the jail scene in Sink or Burn is when they perform at the regime for the kind of the very fancy LGBTQ coalition that is, it's very much a facade to kidnapping gay people and finding gay leaders that they can kind of manipulate into the regime, and but playing and the reason for playing, making money to support the initiative that they're participating in, and even if it's making money for survival, you know, in the context of humans now making art and playing music, there's so much compromise. There's so much we're forced to lose ourselves to survive a lot of the time. But it's like, how can we do that in a way where we don't die, or where we can continue making the work and maybe lose ourselves sometimes in that journey, because we have to pay the bills, we have to have healthcare, we have to do all these things, and we have to live to whatever standard feels comfortable and safe and necessary for us. And in order to reach that standard, we have to make all these compromises. But so yeah, I kind of want the stuff that people learn with the tarot deck and give with the tarot deck are similar to the lessons in this book, which is like, the world around us is going to continue being evil. So how can we use our connection and our wisdom to not mimic those evil foundations or kind of narratives that happen over and over, like the violent narratives happening in different countries, and the narratives that ICE is perpetuating. And you know, these are narratives we've seen so many times with other regimes, but they're also narratives we see in these small communities. And you know, thinking about just keeping each other safe in whatever community we're a part of, a work, a college, a social community, a family. So yeah, it's like, how can we exist in these other worlds without carrying the same kind of values as the violent world? Yeah, and thank you so much. If anyone has any more questions or.
I have a question. You're such a good reader,
Thank you.
and I was wondering, like, if you are hearing, like, the kind of spoken words as you're writing, or, you know.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just acting like the characters, but then also trying to present everything in a way that is entertaining and fun. Yeah, it's always really really layered, because I have so much personal connection to everything, to the characters, to the stories, and then the main character is so autobiographical that when I talk about the book, I say like me and I a lot, like, oh, this is when I blah blah blah. What's that?
You gotta normalize this.
Yeah, and like, but I feel that about so much fiction. You know, if you have any fiction writer friends and you read their books, you're like, I know who that's about. And I'm like, yeah. So it's but this is the most fictionalized thing I've ever done, where all the characters are based off of like a million people and a million situations, and the main character is actually, real talk, also based off of my mom. And I had a moment where a friend of mine was like, you should make this book about your mom. And I'm like, next book, right now I need to write about my feelings. And so the thing about my mom is, as just like her journey as like working her whole life in hospitals, but then having this very creative, like people first kind of way of being. And she was like a preteen during the Cuban Revolution, and to come to America during like that age, and to just be very conflicted, and to just be like, okay, well, I'm gonna take what's given to me, I'm gonna believe what's given to me, but then spend your whole life like growing and learning. And you know, it's been really magical how my mom has like evolved with, like, you know, I love taking her to the queer punk shows. I love taking her out to the like the weird gay art shows, and then that experience of losing not just the physical ease to go to your homeland. There's the embargo against Cuba, but then there's also, when my grandmother passed away in 2015, it was just kind of like it was like, now we're gonna be a whole new family, like we have no choice, because the grandma was like, if you know any Cubans, I don't know, a lot of people have like this very matriarchal grandma like leadership, where it's just like grandma makes all the rules. But then when she passed, it was like we developed these more chaotic relationships to her spirit, and then our chaoticness came out, and like so long story short, you should all come to Florida and we can all paint with my mom. We should all just, like, paint in the beach. Yeah. But yeah, so all the characters are very autobiographical. Everything's very autobiographical, and I apologize for oh wait, actually I found the masturbation chapter. We have I was gonna say, I apologize if you're, can I get a little time check?
4:35.
Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just gonna read this, and then if you have any more questions, let me know in the end. Thank you. If anyone wants to do like a little soundtrack of suspense. Yeah. Oh my God, I don't want to start reading because I'm enjoying this so much. All right. Who did that? Why is this happening? Thank you. All right, so yeah, this actually was featured in Dopamine Press's Sluts anthology, which is so awesome. Michelle T's new press, and it's all stories about queer sluttage. And this piece is in there along with some other stuff, and I kind of edited it in a way that does not exist in here, so it's unique to that book. But I'm gonna read this masturbation part. So this is after Carolina Tatiana sends this text message. Yo, Fulanito and I had a moment. Reggie says, fucking Jesus, it's 7 a.m. Oracle says, cool, maybe you should tell him how you feel, since we're all bandmates. CT says, eye roll emoji. Oracle, by the way, I'm up now. Want to roll me a J and meet me on the porch? Fuck yeah. Reggie says, can you all please text on a separate thread? I just drove us down a dirt path on a mountain for 3 hours while we got chased by goats. You're welcome. Good morning. Oh my God, Reg, why do your texts make sounds? Damn, left on read. 20 minutes? To kill 20 minutes, I regressed into my nylon sleeping bag, silk pillowcases, and neon green vibrator shaped like some kind of a space dick. My masturbation practice had started feeling like a cyclical state of purgatory. The same sleazy rock playlist, the same moment in fabricated time when I'm making out with my ultimate crush, who's unfortunately also my bandmate, on a circular velvet bed while all of our friends sit around enjoying the evening as if it were any other. We're all turning full-face frocks and plumage. Suddenly, Fulanito grabs my shoulders from behind and begins to kiss the back of my neck. Is this allowed on, is sexuality allowed on YouTube?
Yeah.
The tarot readings on there are always censoring the naked people, so. All right. Suddenly, Fulanito grabs my shoulders from behind and begins to kiss the back of my neck. Squeezing the despair out of me through a plunged neckline, Fulanito pushes his hands down my tits and towards my trail while his dick effortlessly thrusts against the soft plateau below my asshole. With 2 fingers, he massages my labia against my clit and to my pleasant surprise, begins to fuck me from behind, all to the wailing rock and roll classics of 2069, the year of the revolution, and I am breathless. Eventually, we nonchalantly break to contribute to the conversation as he innocently plays with my nipple. Whatever, it's just fashion. Ah, the good life, partnership, the security of knowing who you will fuck at the party. Well, at least I have loneliness and trauma and something to write about and compare to the looming apocalypse that my generation was forced to desensitize itself to. God damn it. Fuck love anyway, I'd often think after having an orgasm by myself. Because nothing can possibly be as exciting as making myself come by sitting on a bar stool with my legs crossed while I gingerly enjoyed whatever music was playing, whether I liked it or not. This was easy after a double Kahlua Malibu, you know, a cafecito for lonely bitches. 20 minutes had not yet passed. I took a pause to reflect on the lighter side of apocalyptic despair and remembered last night. They called us Generation Hex because we were wounded and unwilling to put faith, trust, or investment in these broken systems that had very little to show for themselves. However, we had our ancestors, our grit, and our histories. We had our minds and our art and the goal to elevate everything that global assimilation had erased. We created alternate worlds and made art with our wounds because after all, in such a comfy state of fascist neoliberal white supremacy, who even fucking wanted the approval of such a soul-sucking mainstream? Like, who fucking cared that the government was another collective? Except that this one was run by a goddamn robot who swore it wanted to abolish human labor. Abolishing our skill and our autonomy didn't count as liberation. Neither did abolishing oxygen, regenerative wildlife, stem cell research, windmills, and solar panels. So we just sulked, navigating sinkholes and mudslides in the glorious disarray of our beloved dystopia. We'd managed and found purpose in a self-sufficient minefield. The oligarchy could have never... We'd managed and found purpose in a self-sufficient minefield. The oligarchy could have their sheep placenta facials. Democratic fascists love fracking as much as they loved a good facial. They would say it was for sustainability, but it was actually for profit. Accelerated sustainability for tired centrists who couldn't know revolution if it was snuck into their latte by the ghost of Che Guevara. They called it symbiosis. I called it violation. Personally, I would have loved to have lived during the generation of democratic socialism, but we were the last generation, the generation that broke the silence, the generation that pulled the apple from the tree because it tasted good, the generation called Hex, because apparently we hexed the planet. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cristy.
Thank you.
And you'll sign some books, I take it?
Yeah, sure.
Excellent. Books! Thank you, online audience.